What's up, guys? I've got another LEGO Transformers video for you today. This is Pawn and Bishop. These are a couple of mini bots I made years ago. They've got their own video on my channel, and they are made up entirely of droid parts and droid arms, which are notorious for getting loose and breaking over time. So these guys have just been sitting on my shelf being all flimsy and loose, and I couldn't really do anything with them because that would risk breaking all of their parts. Now I have swapped out all the droid arms for this video, so they are solid again, but who wants to keep doing that over and over? So instead, I've decided to completely reimagine them, and this is the new Pawn and Bishop. Now you could see this as a version 2, but I don't really see it that way. These are completely different figures, just representing the same characters. I like to think of it more as Pawn and Bishop upscaled. And the main reason I wanted to upscale them is because the original builds are really small, really simple. There's not a whole lot to them, and I just wanted to make something that was a bit more expressive and would hold up better over time, as opposed to completely relying on droid arms. So let's get the originals out of the way and focus on the new guys. You can see there are a couple of cat-like creatures, not exactly sure which type, although Pawn here, I tried to base off of like a white tiger with all these little vents kind of mimicking the stripes. So there's that. And then Bishop over here, you could say that with his color scheme, he might work as like a panther, but you can see I gave him these little saber-toothed tiger teeth. So I guess he's going to be a saber-tooth. Probably would have worked better for Pawn, but Bishop being a Decepticon, I wanted to make him look more menacing and Pawn a bit less. But I think it works pretty well, and I think they look really nice together. So let's take a quick look at Pawn real quick. I like the way the head looks. You can see it's got the ears, the eyes, which are two different colors. That is not unintentional. That is actually one of his personality traits. I like the way the nose and the mouth look. You can see he's got a lot of silver pieces. The original was completely silver. I tried to make this guy silver as well, but not all of these pieces were available in that color. But I did what I could, and I'm happy with the result. You can see he's got a lot of mixel ball joints in him. This was really just a test for me to see how well I can implement these into a Transformer. Really just to play around with them and get familiar with them, because I haven't really had much experience with them in the past. But I think this guy came out all right. You can see his robot mode head is kind of dangling down here, but I like to say that it just fills in the chest a bit. And the heads were visible on the originals as well. It's just that slope piece in there. So it doesn't bother me too much. And again, here is Bishop. I did try to make them look a little bit different, so they're not like exact copies of each other. But you can see they are basically the same design with just some tweaks. And you may or may not have noticed that Bishop's arms are different. Again, that is not unintentional. That is one of his personality traits. And I'll get into that a little more once we get to the robot mode. But for their cat modes, that is basically it. As you can see, these guys are very poseable and very well balanced. It is not hard to get a good shot of them fighting each other. They are very expressive, and I like how they turned out. For a comparison, here they are next to my new overly engineered sig fig. Just set them right there. You can see how big they are, and I think there's a little too much going on in this shot. Keeping true to the original, their transformations are very simple. We'll go ahead and start with Pawn because he's the easiest to see. And what you want to do first is basically just straighten out the whole figure. We can straighten out his legs, bring them back. Like that. And now we're going to rotate at the waist just like this. I can see I'm going to need to pick up the camera. There we go. Now what we need to do is rotate this back, rotate the head back, drop down the arms, just like that. Fold his head back, And the tail is going to wrap underneath here, and it's actually going to fold up onto his back. I kind of imagine that in robot mode, their tails would kind of hide up and become like their spine. Obviously, I wasn't able to perfectly execute that, but I think it works well enough. The tail is hidden, and I think that works just fine. We'll go ahead and work on his legs here. What you want to do for these is just bend these back and just situate them, fold his foot up, and there you go. Do that on the other side as well. And for the head, we're going to slide these plates back, just like that, and then rotate them up a little bit. And there you have Pawn in his robot mode. Now I'll go ahead and show Bishop's transformation this time because it is a little bit different. It does start out the same though, you just want to straighten everything out. Bring the legs back. And this is where it gets a little bit different. The tail is going to rotate around, and it's going to rotate off to the side here. And then you can just bring it around the waist. This peg here will tab into the crotch section, just like that. And then this brick will fold around, and now he's got like a sort of belt going on. His legs are going to stay the same. They're not going to condense any. The head is going to rotate around, and you just fold his body back, fold the head under, just like that. Bring his arms down, fold the head back, and just position all of these plates. And his are going to be positioned up all the way. And there you have Bishop in robot mode. So the transformations aren't anything too special. That was the case with the originals. It was just meant to be quick and easy, and I think the resulting robot modes look pretty good. You can see they're basically the same figure, but they do have quite a few differences that helps distinguish them. I like how Bishop ends up being taller and bulkier, and I think that really helps set them apart. I like how Pawn over here is looking short, kind of derpy and friendly, and Bishop just looks maniacal and evil. It's just, I really like it. Let's bring in the originals real quick so you can see them. You can see how much of a size difference there is here. And I wanted to focus on making these characters more expressive and more humanoid, I guess. And because you can see, these guys, you can't really tell what you're looking at. And the only real difference, aside from color, is the fact that Bishop has bigger arms. So, again, just wanted to make them more distinguished and give them more personality, and I think I succeeded there. Now let's get a bit closer of a look on all the little differences. You can see with the legs, Pawns kind of transform and condense a little bit, whereas Bishop keeps the animal legs relatively the same. That definitely helps boost the height, and I think it makes him a bit more menacing. I also like how the tail folds up and becomes a belt rather than folding up into the spine. It just makes their transformations a little bit different, and I like that. It's good to not have exactly the same transformation twice. And you can see with the head, it folds up differently, mainly because the saber-toothed tiger head, I didn't want to have the teeth sticking out, but I like how it's different on both of them. And you can see the ears as well. I decided to make those a bit different, just so they're not exactly the same looking. And they stand up all right, despite how small their feet are. Bishop, I usually have a bit harder of a time because of how, his feet are tiny compared to Pawn's. But it's not too bad. And you can see Pawn has all these shiny plates on him. I really like that. I did have to bricklink all of these silver pieces just because I wanted to get new ones that weren't scratched up. And it really makes all the difference. I love how shiny he is. Taking a look at articulation, they are basically the same. They've got ball-jointed shoulders. You get a lot of good motion there. The elbows bend decently, although you only get 90 degrees. He's got wrist swivel, pivot, all that good stuff. The head rotates, kind of looks up and down, but it doesn't really look too natural. He's got a ball-jointed waist, so you can get all kinds of movement there. You can move the spine piece because it's also on a bunch of ball joints, being the tail. The legs move forward and back, in and out, decent amount of movement there. The legs kick back almost 180 degrees, and he's got the same thing going on with his heels. He's got pivot and even a bit of a rotation. So you can get him in just about any pose you like, which again definitely helps with making these figures more expressive. Bishop's articulation is basically the same, but with the different legs. That doesn't mean he does have a few different joints. He's just got an extra knee, and he doesn't have the ankle tilt, which means posing this guy can be a little bit more tricky, but if you do manage to get him into a good pose, he does look very cool and very menacing, and I'll show that off a little later on. As you can see, he is a bit difficult to stand, but it's not too bad. Taking a look at accessories, Pawn has these, and Bishop gets these. Taking a look at Pawn's accessories first, you can see he's got this kind of staff weapon. It's kind of like the Electro staffs from Star Wars, but except it's an Energon staff. And it's kind of weird looking, but it's got plenty of points where you can hold it. And it just splits down the middle here, or splits apart there, and he can hold it however he wants. So let's say I want to have him holding it here. We can put that back on. And then let's just take that off. Kind of bend his arm around that. Put this back on. His wrist will cooperate. There we go. Now I've got him holding his staff, and he can be posed quite well with that. I'll show that off later. But more often than not, he'll be using his other weapons, one of which is this little Energon shield, which has got this peg here that mounts to the back of his forearm. Just like this. And I much prefer this weapon. These little pieces on the side kind of make it look like his arm opens up and the shield just generates. Kind of like an integrated weapon, even though it's a separate piece. I just really like the way that looks. And of course, he's got his rifle. Kind of a sniper rifle look to it. It's got a long stock, long barrel, nice silver scope up there, made from a lightsaber, of course. And these side pieces, it's got this jumper plate here, which is angled down, and it's got this little L-shaped tile. I honestly wasn't sure which one I wanted to use, so I used one of each, and the result is got like a shell ejection chamber, so that's a bit of a happy coincidence. And of course, I can't talk about this without addressing the buzzsaw bayonets. I thought that was a pretty neat feature, and it gives the handle that angled shape that it's supposed to have. And he can just hold that in his hand right there. Just get him situated with it. And then he is ready to go. Moving on to Bishop's accessories, you can see he doesn't get an Energon staff or a shield or anything. Instead, he combines the two into this Madu weapon, and I think it looks pretty neat. It's got the shield, it's got these two giant swords. And if you haven't noticed by now, one of his hands has a hole in it, one of them does not. That's because this hand is designed for holding his Madu. It just slips into his hand right there, and he looks very menacing holding that. And of course, he also gets a rifle. Take a look at that here. It's not a sniper rifle, it's more like a submachine gun with a shorter stock and barrel, but a larger scope, curiously enough. You can look through it, so that's pretty neat. And of course, it retains the buzzsaw bayonet, so he can hold that. Just like that. So now he's got his Madu and his weapon, and we'll just get the two of them together, looking very battle ready, and I really like the way they look. Something else that's worth mentioning about their weapons is each of their rifles has a jumper plate on the side. That is for weapon storage. For Pawn, you can take it and store it on his back quite easily. Actually, let's put it a little higher up. And he looks pretty cool with his rifle attached to his back. It does make him a little bit back heavy, but he's still able to stand. Bishop is not able to do this, however, because his head rotates around. So instead, you can just attach it to the side of his belt there, and it only partially gets in the way. So there they go with their weapon storage. So I suppose I should cover these guys' backstory a little bit before I go. It's quite extensive, so I may end up doing a separate video on it entirely, so let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing that. It essentially starts with Pawn, who is one of many Autobot drones that are sent in to combat the Decepticons on Earth. And once the Decepticon threat is defeated, the drones get shut down, except for Pawn, who has a bit of a glitch in his programming, which allows him to develop higher awareness, an independent personality, and essentially just become more intelligent. So that's why his eyes are different colors, just to represent the fact that he's kind of got a glitchy, quirky personality. Now, the drones were mass-produced on various machines, and one of them is still up and running. And it's kind of linked to Pawn, so whenever he dies, he just gets built a new body, and then he just gets sent back into wherever he was. So that's his thing. He doesn't die, he just respawns. Bishop is kind of the same thing, but a bit different. He's another one of the drones. He doesn't die. Instead, he reassembles and repairs himself. But sometimes if you get like blown up or something, pieces get warped and damaged beyond repair. So he doesn't always reassemble perfectly, and I've kind of represented that there on his arm with the different panels. So they're kind of locked in this eternal battle. They're both jealous of each other because of their different ways of cheating death. Bishop likes how Pawn gets a new, fresh body. Pawn envies how Bishop stays where he is. He doesn't have to die and then get sent far away from the battle, wherever that machine is. And it's kind of something like that. It's not fully fleshed out yet, but if you guys are interested, I'll make a video that covers it more in depth. Actually, I might just make that video anyway, because I'd kind of like to tell that story. But for now, that is Pawn and Bishop, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like or a comment telling me what you thought about them, and stay tuned for more LEGO Transformers in the near future, and I'll see you guys next time.